Begin the next debate, I would just like to remind members that they can only make speeches in this debate with the agreement of the debate holder. I will call Sarah Dyke to move the motion, and I will then call the Minister to respond. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention for 30-minute debates. Order, order. Sarah Dyke to move the motion.
Thank you, Dame Siobhan. It's a pleasure to serve with you in the chair today. Broadband and internet connectivity is integral to modern life, whether that be in education, employment, leisure, healthcare, or almost anything else. We rely on broadband more than ever before, and the tasks that we carry out require higher speeds than ever before. Digital connectivity provides us with great opportunities. Small businesses can widen their reach. Health consultants can be carried out online, but many rural areas are still struggling to realise the opportunities available due to poor broadband coverage. Dame Siobhan, 17% of rural domestic premises and 30% of rural commercial premises don't have access to superfast broadband.
On that point?
Yes, I will.
Can I commend the Honourable Lady for bringing this forward? She brings really important debates to this chamber, and her contributions in the chamber as well are much appreciated. On the subject of rural broadband, and especially for the businesses, like the Honourable Lady, I make a plea that broadband must be dependable as well as fast, and the government need to ensure the connections are up to date and fit for purpose, and able to cope with the intensification that working from home has placed in the need for reliable connection. Does the Honourable Lady agree? The government really needs to move in this one.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his intervention. Yes, I agree, and I will come on to that as I move through my speech. Dame Siobhan, the County Council's network analysis shows that only 21% of county areas have gigabit broadband, compared to 70% of London. These statistics won't come as a surprise to my constituents in Butley, where over 15% of premises receive lines getting 10 megabytes per second or less, putting the area in the worst 10% in the UK. Other areas of my constituency mirror this, with 10% of premises in Bruton, Brewham and Cucklington receiving less than 10 megabytes per second, while around 7% of premises in Curry Rival, Fivehead, Ilchester, Mudford, Langport, Long Sutton and Martock also receive less than 10 megabits per second. Dame Siobhan, it was only yesterday when my constituency office in Sparkford lost internet connection during the working day, leaving my team frustrated and annoyed. These same feelings are regularly felt by many reliant on good broadband to carry out their work in rural areas. The broadband speeds these premises receive is under the universal service obligation, which Ofcom calculated at 10 megabytes per second in 2018. However, it's important to note that as the need increases, broadband speeds must reflect this. Now, a survey from the Countryside Alliance found that 70% of respondents felt that digital infrastructure is the most important issue to the rural economy. Given that only 58% of premises in Glastonbury and Somerton currently have gigabit broadband, compared to the national average of 78%, it's clear that people in rural areas are being held back by poor broadband access. Yes, I'll give way.
Thank the Honourable Lady greatly for allowing me to intervene. Forgive me. I just wanted to comment, and I know that the Minister has very kindly agreed to meet with me and my Somerset colleagues, including the instigator of this debate, but actually the reducing rate of network expansion across Somerset is absolutely shocking, and connecting Devon and Somerset has been a monumental failure. Would she agree that actually what we need to do is make absolutely certain that this exceedingly disappointing performance in getting rural broadband into Somerset has to stop, and things need to accelerate, not decelerate?
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention, and I'm very grateful for her for securing an audience with the Minister, and I very much hope that we are then able to ensure that this comes to an end and we get the coverage that we need in Somerset, which is largely a rural county. Now, yes, I will very quickly.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for giving way and thank you for bringing the debate. Yeah, connectivity is a significant problem for my constituents in Derbyshire Dales. It has the 26th lowest rate of gigabit broadband coverage in the country. And currently only 40% of residents have access to gigabit broadband. Does the Honourable Member therefore welcome the fact that the recent budget allocated £500 million to support the rollout of gigabit broadband to ensure that we can reach full national coverage by 2030?
Gentleman for his intervention. Obviously that the funding is very welcome, but we need to make sure that it's fit for purpose and it reaches our customers, and that's the most important thing, because there's far too many areas, rural areas, who are in very, very hard to reach areas. So this money should be fit for purpose. Now, Dame Siobhan, Openreach's Gigabit Economy report estimates that full fibre coverage could boost UK productivity by 72 billion by 2030 and bring over 500,000 people back into the workforce. If the government want to achieve the growth that they have spoken about, they must recognise there are huge opportunities in rural areas, and adequate broadband coverage is crucial to achieving this. The ongoing spending review must take... Yes, I will.
I thank the Honourable Member for giving way. I also represent a very rural area, and despite being a stone's throw away from Bristol, there are people who don't have adequate services. Would my honourable friend agree that its timeliness of getting the service is also important as the service that you eventually get? That if you've got people, professionals such as doctors, waiting a long time for the installation to happen, that is as much of an issue as the speeds once you've got them installed?
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention. I couldn't agree more. Dame Siobhan, the ongoing spending review must take this into account and must ensure that the remaining unspent funds for Project Gigabit are spent on ensuring the very hard to reach areas are indeed covered. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Chamber Engagement team, who have provided me with quotes from members of the public in preparation for this debate. And the following quotes demonstrate just how damaging poor broadband is to productivity in people's lives. Alison said that as a small business owner, their slow broadband impacts their entire productivity, from accessing emails to downloading and uploading files to suppliers. With more and more people working from home, poor broadband puts rural people at a massive disadvantage. My constituents in Charlton Adam work in technology and video editing, and often from home, but due to poor broadband speeds, they are continually hampered by poor download and transfer speeds. When inquiring about fibre to their premises on demand services, they were quoted an astonishing price of £270,000 to do it. Poor broadband also impacts farming and agricultural businesses.
Would the Honourable Lady give way?
I will.
Thank you for giving way. On that note about it impacting rural farming businesses, as a vet, I spend a lot of my time driving around the Meon Valley, around places like Chilcombe, where not only is the broadband terrible, but the mobile signal and 3G, 4G, 5G is barely existent as well. And it's not unusual to be midnight trying to find a property where you're trying to attend an emergency, which also affects someone's business if you end up with the death of a cow or a horse, and you can't even make a phone call or look on Google Maps to find your location. So it's not only broadband itself, it's lack of connectivity on every level. And certainly if we can get a mobile phone, if we can get a landline to every single property in the UK, we should be able to get fibre to every property in the UK.
Thank you, for his comments, and again I wholeheartedly agree, and I will come on to more points about rural businesses and farmers and indeed vets. But farmers rely on the internet for multiple purposes, such as SFI applications, other grant applications, monitoring for their animals and for security of their property. And now Vanessa, a farmer, told the engagement team that they cannot connect their burglar alarm to their mobiles as their broadband is just too weak. Now, Dame Siobhan, this is very concerning for farms, especially in the southwest, where the cost of rural crime rose 41% last year, costing farmers £7 million, according to the NFU's Rural Crime Report. Even if equipment is fitted with alarms, it takes the police time to respond due to the remote locations of farms and rural businesses. But reliable broadband and smart Wi-Fi products allow for proactive and reactive security of their farms. I will very quickly, yes.
Thank you, Dame Siobhan. Does my honourable friend agree with me that the Minister really does need to find a way to ensure that there's a suitable alternative for our constituents in Somerset following the failure of CDS and Airband?
Thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention. As previously mentioned, we must work harder to try and resolve some of the problems that CDS has left us in Devon and Somerset. If I may carry on, Dame Siobhan, farms are also hindered by poor mobile connectivity, with an NFU survey revealing that only 21% of farmers have reliable mobile signals across their whole farm. This is especially important in farming, given that it is Britain's most dangerous industry, accounting for 20% of all deaths in the workplace, and often farmers will be working alone. So it is vital that they can contact help in case of an incident. So we must make progress with the shared rural network, and while recent funding announcements are welcome, there is still more progress to be made, especially in the very hard to connect areas that make up around 4% of Glastonbury and Somerton. Now, when speaking to Connecting Devon and Somerset, the challenges in connecting these premises becomes clear. When physical infrastructure access is in place, a build can cost £20 per metre, but without it, prices can go up by 10 times that. And if the landowner doesn't give permission, the costs rise even further. Project Gigabit has been targeting homes and businesses not included in broadband suppliers' plans and have helped to reach those hard-to-reach communities. And I think it's important that we reflect and recognise the successes of the project that it's had so far, and I hope will continue to have. But we mustn't forget the final few % of people who will struggle to get good broadband coverage. Now, I will.
Thank you very much for securing this debate. Several villages within my constituency of Waveney Valley are dependent on outdated legacy copper lines. Areas like Darrow Green Road in Dunton and Ringsfield Common rely on copper connection that can be a couple of miles from the cabinet, struggling with broadband speeds abysmally inadequate for the needs of modern life. These areas have no indication of when they're going to get upgrades. Would the member join me in calling on the Minister to set out transparent timescales for supporting these villages and hamlets?
This is the Honourable Lady's debate, and she can conduct it as she wishes.
I will.
It seems to me that it may be more appropriate to ask for a longer debate because of the amount of intervention she is accepting and the difficulty that may cause the Minister in responding.
Thank you, Dave Shaw. I do take your point, so I will hesitate to take any further interventions. The previous government launched a consultation into reaching very hard-to-reach areas, and to their credit, began important work in this sector. Now, I believe that the new government must make the opportunity to re-establish this work to make sure these areas aren't left further behind. This work is a once-in-a-generation project, and I fear if we don't focus on providing adequate coverage now, it may never happen, as it is highly likely these areas won't be commercially viable for providers to connect in future. When speaking to Wessex Internet, who have both the local authority and the Project Gigabit contracts for Glastonbury and Somerton, it's clear there are changes that could help them provide coverage in these hard-to-reach areas. More flexibility is required from BD UK to add additional properties to the contract and to ensure premises that have been missed are brought into scope again, while also providing a route to subsidy funding that would help boost coverage. Dame Siobhan, many providers face struggles in accessing land, with the electronic communications code sometimes necessitating a lot of time to be taken to grant the provider with access to private land in order to build, creating a barrier to entry to the rural network build. The electronic communication code could be streamlined to speed up this process, reducing costs and providing more communities with access to gigabit broadband faster. I know that this would be welcomed by my constituents in Fifed, who wrote to me ahead of this debate to reveal that they were reliant on slow 5 megabits per second speeds, which is hardly adequate to meet modern demands. Now, I know that fibre build to the premises may never be feasible for some rural areas due to the huge cost and logistical challenges involved. So instead, we must look alternative solutions in these cases, whether that be fixed wireless or, in the most rural areas, satellite coverage. As technology develops, opportunities arise, and we must be prepared to take full advantage of this. The Liberal Democrats are committed to ensuring gigabit broadband is available to every home and business, and we support local bespoke solutions to achieving this. Now, I would welcome the Minister's comments on how this government will ensure, they will be short, ensure that these most difficult to reach places will not be forgotten. Dame Siobhan, now is the opportunity for us to move further, faster and simplify processes to deliver gigabit broadband to every community. We mustn't leave rural areas behind, otherwise I fear that they will never catch up. Thank you.
Call the Minister.
Thank you very much, Dame Siobhan. And it's a delight to be here, and I warmly congratulate the member for Glastonbury and Somerton on securing this debate. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer all the questions today from all the members who've come, and I know some members have raised questions in DSIT questions as well, which. And I note that one member said that I was prepared to have an audience with people, which makes me sound like the Pope. And I am not the Pontifex Maximus. I'm not even the Pontifex Minimus. But I am very happy that myself and my PPS, we are very happy to organise specific meetings to go through with officials, to go through the specific issues that there are in individual constituencies. Some of the statistics that have been thrown out are different from the statistics I have, and it may be that mine are a little bit more up to date because we have a whole department to look up statistics for us. But as I say, that offer is available to all honourable members. I want to be as helpful as a minister as I possibly can, because I fully wait a second. Because I fully accept the fundamental point that was made right at the beginning by the honourable member, which is that broadband is essential to nearly every form of engagement in modern life. Whether it's trying to find out where you are, trying to find out, the nearest chemist that's still open, or trying to log on to a government website, or for that matter, government trying to do its business, or local businesses trying to set up an industry or whatever. So all of those things are absolutely vital. I will in one moment. And secondly, speed. Broadband is greedy. Every year, more and more speed is needed and capacity, and that's why we need to make sure that we get to full gigabit-capable broadband for every single premises, set of premises as soon as we possibly can. That is not a difficult thing to achieve, and of course, I'm going to give way to the Honourable Lady because she's doing it in a timely way.
Just a month.
I thank the Minister greatly. I'd like to join with my honourable friend from Winchester in saying that I wondered whether he is actually the king of mobile signal as well. If he is, there's a cracking need to get on with making sure that areas like mine, like his, have got a decent mobile signal. Thank you.
She's absolutely right, yes. I'm the Minister for Telecoms, and that includes all of... I think Portcullis House is a matter for the Speaker and for the Admin Committee. Interesting intervention from the Chair there. But it is a serious point, because in many cases, if we could get to 5G standalone, some of these issues would, universally, then some of these issues wouldn't apply, because you would be able to do lots of things. The police, for instance, will be able to have fully streamed services available through their 5G, and broadband might not be so immediately significant. But I'm also painfully aware, this is something I've raised when I was a backbench MP, when I was a baby MP, all the time, which is that sometimes Ofcom's reporting doesn't quite match people's lived experience. So it will say, for instance, 98% coverage of from all 4 operators on mobile, and actually, when you get there, you can't get a signal for love nor money. And often, and that is because, and often that is because the way that Ofcom has been reporting has been relying on 2 megabits per second. Well, 2 megabits per second, you can't do anything, which goes back to the original point that was made by the Honourable Member for, I think of her as the member for Glastonbury Tor now, because it's just a bit shorter in my head. I'll give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
I'm very grateful to the Minister for giving way. This data issue that he raises is precisely the issue we've been experiencing. You look at the maps that are provided on paper, the villages have fantastic signal, fantastic broadband. That just isn't the case in terms of people's experience. I'm grateful to the Minister for meeting with me recently to talk about this issue and for the rollout we're going to see from government in East Cleveland. I hope to see progress on this soon.
I don't want honourable members over there to think that I've had an audience with a Labour member and not with others. This is a universally accepted. There's a universal service obligation on the Minister here, and I think probably for most of the issues that have been raised, the single most useful thing will be to book in a time when I can have officials there from BD UK that can go through both the mobile issues and the broadband issues in relation to their specific constituency, because we do have much more precise maps, and we are able to take all of those issues through. He's absolutely right. One of the first things I did when I became a minister with responsibility for telecoms was I wrote to Ofcom to say you have to review the way that you look at these issues of reporting, and I'm glad to say that Ofcom have replied quite recently, and I'm very happy to put a copy of that letter in the library so that everybody can see the correspondence that we've had. But it is a good point. Apart from anything else, the mobile operators would quite like to know where there is good coverage, and good coverage means coverage that is actually any use to anybody, rather than something that theoretically says 4G, but it doesn't feel like 4G at all. The Honourable Member.
Richard Ford. I'm grateful, and the Minister has kindly agreed to meet with myself and some Somerset colleagues later this month to discuss it. One thing that I just want to put on the agenda for that meeting is around connecting Devon and Somerset, which has cancelled 3 contracts before and has just cancelled a 4th. I wonder if we've got a special problem in Devon and Somerset.
Well, that may be the case, and that is one of the things that we can specifically take up with BD UK. I should explain the whole process first, which is that, of course, government doesn't want to have to pay for the rollout of broadband across the whole of the UK. That would be an enormous big-ticket item, or, for that matter, the rollout of 5G. But we know, and so we're trying to make sure that where commercial operators can do that rollout, they are able to do so as cost-effectively as possible. And then, where it is not going to be commercially viable, then government steps in. And that is what the whole BD UK programme is, both through Project Gigabit and through the Shared Rural Network. Shared Rural Network obviously applying to mobile telephony, and Project Gigabit relating to broadband. So that's the plan. But the Honourable Member for Glastonbury and Somerton, she mentioned the issue of very hard to reach places. And the truth is, there will be probably 1% of places which will be extremely difficult, either through a commercial operation or, frankly, for the taxpayer to take a fibre to every single property. That could be so prohibitively expensive for the taxpayer that we will have to look at alternative means. And I think this goes to the point that the Honourable Member made from the Conservative Party, whose conceit, Bridgewater, thank you, that he was making, that we will have to look at alternatives, and some of those may relate to satellite or wireless deliveries of broadband. A new member wanting to make another contribution, of course.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to intervene. This Shared Rural Network, there's £500 million set aside for that, was instigated by the previous government. In the Highlands of Scotland, it is organised by land mass rather than the geographic concentration of people. If you want to find £300 or £400 million of that to help with the rollout of broadband, feel free, because it's very unpopular where we are and it's not serving the need of the people. Thank you.
Well, I hope I might be able to help him a little bit here. I mean, I know the Highlands of Scotland very well. Spent many of my childhood summers in Aviemore. I know the Cairngorms well. And it seems to me illogical simply to put masts, big masts, in places of extreme natural beauty just for the sake of saying that we've covered geographical mass. Much more important is to have masts in places where there are actually people and where there's a connection that's going to be used. So that is very much the direction of travel that I'm hoping that we can go in relation. I'm not sure that it's going to save the amount of money that he's talking about, because people do still need, for all the reasons that have been raised by others, they do still need connectivity in lots of places which are fairly out of the way, but broadly speaking, he makes a fair point. I can't remember whether he's written to me about this, but I know that several Scottish MPs have, and if he writes to me, he'll get the same response as the others have had, which is, broadly speaking, the point that I've just made. If members want to, they can go to thinkbroadband.com, incidentally, for the most up-to-date figures on broadband rollout. I mentioned the figures that the Honourable Member raised. She said, I think that the figures in her constituency, in the South West, are 97% of premises in the South West can now access super-fast broadband, and 77% can access gigabit-capable broadband. That is, however, lower than in the rest of the UK, and our aspiration is to get to the same kind of levels across the whole of the United Kingdom, though obviously there are geographical difficulties. I know this from the South Wales valleys, where it's difficult as well. I should also say that there is a difference between have access to and have. So, for instance, in many parts, not of rural parts of the UK, but in city parts, urban parts of the country, the gigabit capable has gone down the street, but it hasn't gone into the building. So there are sets of issues for urban areas, and I know she's written to me, and others have written or asked me questions about how much of the BDUK budget is being spent on rural areas. It's more than 90%, but there are some urban issues as well which we need to address. So I'm trying not to see this as urban versus rural. There are different sets of issues in different areas, and we need to address all of them. I've referred to the matter of very hard to reach areas, and we are looking at alternatives. She also raised the issue of the Electronic Communications Code, and I rather agree with her that the process is cumbersome. Obviously, there's been a new Electronic Communications Code, and I can confirm for her that we are looking at implementing the Product Security and Telecoms Infrastructure Act 2022 provisions that have not yet been implemented in fairly short measure, and I hope we'll be able to make further announcements about that fairly soon. And that should meet some of the issues that she's concerned about, because the truth of the matter is that broadband now, or mobile connectivity in general, is as important as water, electricity and any of the other services that we've all come to rely on. And whether it's for the issues that she relates, in particular in relation to farms, or it's to do with running the government or being a member of society. And one of the other areas where I think we have to do far, far more, and I think it's been a shame that we've done less over the last 12 years as a government, is in relation to digital inclusion. Because the truth of the matter is that you could map areas of digital deprivation in parts of the country, including in the South West. We need to tackle that. We need to have a whole government approach, part of which is about access, part of which is about skills, part of which is about tackling poverty, a whole series of different issues. But if we really want to take the whole of the country forward into a digital and prosperous future, then we can only do so if we have included every single part of the country. Part of that is about, as I said, connectivity. Part of that is about the affordability of connectivity. Part of that is about people understanding that they need the high speeds that she's talked about. But part of it is also having the skills and the understanding to be able to take those issues on. So, as I say, Dame Siobhan, I'm very happy to give audiences to anybody who wants, and they should approach me as soon as possible, because we've got quite a long list of people who do want. But I see this as an essential part of us delivering an economic future that we can all be proud of in this country.
Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30.